See if anybody. Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And I'm back today with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going today, Bill?
Hey, it's going well. Thank you very much. A beautiful day here in the Great Plains, Midwest.
Oh yeah, it's 50 and sunny out.
Crazy.
When you live up here in the cold plains, you're all for global warming.
Well, we're certainly seeing some reflection of that at the moment.
Yeah, well, last year you and I both got new fiber internet, and they couldn't bury our fiber because there was so much snow on the ground.
Too cold, yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking to beekeepers and asking them if the bees have started stirring yet, which I hope they haven't, because that'll be disastrous for them.
It's too early.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just never know. Oh yeah, you must have seen a BYD shark. I think Arizona is probably the place where it's most common to see people coming over from Mexico with
buying in Mexico and then driving over.
Yeah.
Although I would assume that they can't obviously license them. So there's people visiting from what's the town across from El Paso? I've forgotten now. Juarez? No.
Juarez.
Anyway, whatever.
Wasn't that crazy about what happened about how the cartels were flying drones and interfering with
Yeah, there's something screwy going on there. You don't close down that much airspace for 10 days. And then suddenly, in less than 10 hours, you shut it down and say, no, we're good. You can start flying.
Yeah. Well, the military came in. The military came in and they shut down whatever was going on across border.
They came in with apparently, from what I'm hearing, a top secret laser device to either shoot down real cartels or to shoot down drones to simulate cartel drones. So, don't know. Secret program.
Yeah,
kind of like UAPs,
Yeah, I like the high pressure skeet shooting videos I've seen from GoPros of people in Ukraine, because the drones are coming out from the ones on the fly by wire. They kind of stopped doing a lot of the and I can't imagine what it must cost to make those fiber optic lines to be reeling behind a drone.
And what I have heard, because I listen quite often to various podcasters from there, is that there are whole areas that look like there's been lines laid down by spider silk. It's just everywhere. You can't walk anywhere without having these fiber optic lines that have been laid out by Russian, or for that matter, Ukrainian drones.
It's nuts, isn't it? I just find that hard to fathom that the drones can be laying that much fiber behind them, flying around. I mean, I guess that was the whole idea with the TOW missile, right? The TOW missile was a fly-by-wire type anti-tank defense, but still, it's just hard to fathom the kind of quantities. But I've seen some of these videos of guys with a shotgun.
Oh yeah,
they've got the GoPro, and here comes the drone.
Yeah, so it's a few dollars worth of bird shot compared to a $5,000 or $6,000 drone. Taking out a $500,000, whatever the Russian, Iranian Shahad drones cost. I mean, it's changing warfare. Like the tank and the machine gun did in World War I, and the jet engine and radar did in World War II. This is changing. This is changing warfare of the future. Do we really need billion-dollar aircraft carriers and multi-million-dollar tanks anymore, when a $500 drone can take them out?
This has always been one of the arguments about infantry, though. You can't take land with an airplane or a drone. Now, actually, they're kind of showing you can create area denial. with these weapons, but you can only really occupy territory with infantry. And as long as there's infantry, there's going to have to be better ways to keep them alive.
Well,
You know?
there's the issue, because now they're using, what was it I saw? The drones are using, no, I'm confusing with another story. So forget it.
That's all right. Anyways,
Let's
let's
move
start
on.
out. Yeah, we'll actually get into some EV news. So, but anyways, all right. Tesla's US sales plunged 17% in January. Tesla only sold 40,100 vehicles in January. This is in the US, down from 48,000 in January 25. 9 of the past 12 months have shown year-over-year declines. The tax credit hangover is real. The expiration of the $7,500 federal tax credit effectively raised prices overnight. The only 3 months of growth in the past year were entirely driven by consumers rushing to buy before the credit expired. And brand damage compounds the problem. Tesla's brand value crashed 36% in 25. Now, brand value is something different than what the value of the stock is, but it was at a peak of 66 billion in 23, and it's down to 27 billion now. In California, Tesla's market share fell from 11.6 to 9.9, while competitors grew in that market, which is a devastating signal for a brand born in the Bay Area. So Tesla's certainly having some car sales change.
And not just car sales, they're having executives walking out and fairly,
of XAI.
At XAI. So there are definitely issues. Their sales are down in China, and their sales are down in Europe as well.
Yeah. On the flip side, Rivian stock has gone up about 20% in the past month, although it's still sitting, I think. Well, look here, we got Tesla,
$17.70 right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's still not the highest it's been, but it's still up 32% for the past 12 months.
Yep.
So it's doing quite well. Affordability is the new battleground. The R2 SUV starts at $45,000, which is similar to the Model Y pricing, marking a significant step down from the luxury R1 family. Massive delivery jump is expected this year. They project to deliver between 62 and 67,000 vehicles, a 53% increase from the 42,000 they delivered last year. By year end, RJ expects the R2 to make up the majority of Rivian's volume. Well, that makes sense,
me.
Right?
The most frequently seen new Ford that I see anymore is the Bronco. Now, that's obviously, it's a gas-powered car, but there's that off-road, rugged Jeep Bronco style that is quite popular, and you've got now, that's what Rivian is about to offer. So, I can see them doing well.
The R1 looks kind of like a cross between a Bronco and a Range Rover.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, the sedan, the S version. Yeah.
Yeah. But let's see. Q4 profitability milestone. Rivian achieved a positive gross profit of 120 million in Q4 of 25, prompting analysts to raise price targets. Deutsche Bank is expecting it to go up to about $23.
Above where they are now, or go up to
23 total.
Yeah, so it'd be a little above what their peak was here a month or so ago when I sold.
All right. So we've had negative,
right?
Then positive.
Yep.
We're going back to negative. All right. Yep. Automakers. Now that total, we had talked about Ford, then we talked about Ford and GM, then we talked about Ford, GM, and Stellantis. Although I think some of the Stellantis numbers are BS. I just have a hard time believing. Of course, they have a lot of brands, right? And they're all over the world.
At least a half dozen different brands.
Yeah. But now Honda has gotten into it. And the total between all of them is about 50 billion in write-downs.
Yeah.
So Honda's also announced billions in charges to write down EV investments that didn't pay off as the market shifts post-tax credit. Now,
we keep talking the post-tax credit in the United States. But affordable EVs are still the priority. Despite the write-downs, Ford is focusing on a $30,000 EV pickup. They're expecting to reveal it next week. So that'll be interesting to see. So we'll have some news for next week. GM brought back the Bolt under 30 grand, and Tesla stopped selling the higher end Model S and the Model X. Of course, they're talking about using those production lines for robotics, but I mean, those two models didn't really represent a lot of their volume for the last few years.
No, it's been Ys and S's.
Yeah,
threes. I'm sorry, threes and Ys.
The S is pretty dated. I mean, you could go out and buy a 2014 Model S used, and it's pretty damn similar to what they're selling today. There's not a lot of difference.
Not a lot of change, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a difficult thing to live with. I think that they've not done any real creative design on their cars. Let me see. After the hype of 23-24, automakers are regrouping with more realistic timelines and product strategies focused on profitability over market share. Well, I don't know that people were really just looking for market share in the EV space. I mean, they're all trying to make a buck on the cars. The problem is,
that's the whole point of a company, right? Make a few bucks.
Right, make a profit. But we talked about this for a long time. The traditional car makers with the dealer focus don't really, I don't know, they don't have a great future with EVs. And so there's no incentive for them to be pushing EVs because they're not getting the service work.
Right.
And ultimately, with less maintenance required on the cars, I think people are probably going to trade them in less. So you're going to have some, other things change. All right. So we got another story on the same topic. Global EV sales dropped 3% in January. That's the first time since we've been doing the show I recall us hearing of global sales dropping.
Decline, yeah.
A 3% decline in January year over year. China and US led the decline. China by far, though. China's global EV registrations fell 3% to 1.2 million units for January. China dropped 20% to under 600,000. So China generally represents about half the world's EV sales. It's the lowest for China in almost 2 years.
Now, can you guess why?
Because they added sales tax to them.
No. Because the economy is in such frickin' precarious shape. Have you been following what's going on with the Chinese CCP leadership vacuums?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God. Xi Jinping got himself elected for a third term, which supposedly was not supposed to happen, but he got his the people to support that. So now apparently he's coming up for another re-election. So what they have done is they have basically taken and removed. Now, what removed means? Have they put him out to pasture and retirement? Have they given him a comfortable, place to, a mountain retreat? Or have they disposed of him the way, oppressive governments, generally dispose of people with a bullet in the back of the brain? We don't know. These guys, these are top Chinese military leaders. Only 1 out of 9 remains. The others gone. And there have been all kinds of troop movements around Beijing, aircraft flyovers, explosions that people don't know what's going on. So it's any wonder that I'm not surprised at all that sales have gone down there, because the Chinese economy is really reeling at the moment. They were 10 years ago, they were booming, they're unstoppable. You can only take and push an economy like theirs, controlled type economy, government top down. You can only push that so long, and things start falling apart. And the whole thing began to fall apart when they discovered that the rocket fuel in their missiles had been replaced by water. And they began to slow, what's going on here over the past several years? And they have just basically conducted what is thought to be very similar to Stalinist type purges of the Russian military in 1930. They've gotten rid of these people. So I am not, then you see all of the strikes that have gone on over there, the fires in factories. That economy is seriously suffering. So it does not surprise me that EVs or any other automobiles for that matter are selling any kind of volume.
Well, on top of that, they introduced, apparently they had not had a sales tax on EVs, and there is now. And they just introduced it.
Well, you know why?
More subsidies.
Because the economy is so short of money. They are not collecting the taxes and things that they once did. And a lot of that's, I don't know. I can't speak with any authority, so I won't go there. But that doesn't surprise me. So yeah, let's tax these EVs because it was a growing market, and they're just short of money. You've had all these, you've probably read about all the ghost cities,
right?
All the apartments and buildings that common Chinese people. That's how they invested their money, and they just sit empty. And in some cases, they're literally going in new buildings that have never been occupied and demolishing them. So they've got serious problems with the Chinese economy that we don't. The sad thing is the local media, American media, we don't talk about it. Thankfully,
No.
we've got a network basically of people that do cover things of that, and you can select the news the news you want to see and not have to have gatekeepers, at the 5:30 national news every night. So there are serious problems in it. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's just, I'm worried about you losing social credit, Bill.
You know what? Yeah, I don't care. Really? How many? I mean, I've been to China.
There goes our CCP EV World sponsorship.
I have been to China twice, right? I've enjoyed both of those opportunities. It's an amazing country with amazing history and really amazing people. Look, they lead in battery development. They lead in EV acceptance. They lead in solar panel production. They are one of the top leaders in wind and wind power, development and exports and things. They've seen a few, right? And they're and of course they have control of virtually all of the rare minerals and materials refining. I don't know what it is. Depends on which particular mineral you're talking about. They have control of that. They saw the future and they prepared for it. And now we're trying to play catch up. But boy, the government that got them there is not the government I would certainly want to live under, where they keep score of my social media.
Social credit score.
Yeah, my social credit.
Yeah. U.S. sales, or North American EV sales, are down 33% to just 85,000 vehicles last month. It's the fewest since 2022, driven by the policy changes under the Trump administration. But on the flip side, the rest of the world surged 92% in January. Sales up to 190,000 units, highest on record, sustained by incentives in Thailand and strong growth in South Korea and Brazil. Europe grew 24%, but that was the slowest rate since February of 25. So Europe's growth slowed a little bit, but they still had great sales.
Growth. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting. We keep having, Tesla down, Rivian up, China down, the rest of the world up. It's very interesting to see how we're seeing these ebb and flow of all these different places. Let's see. So XAI has had a leadership crisis.
Oh, yeah.
Musk has announced a reorganization to improve speed of execution after co-founders Jimmy Ba, Tony Wu departed this week, following earlier exits by Igor Babushkin, Kyle Kosick, Christian Zegedy, and Greg Yang. Apologies to Christian if I hacked your last name. Now, of course, we had the SpaceX XAI merger. Last week's all-stock transaction placed SpaceX at a $1 trillion valuation and XAI at a $250 billion post-merger value. The SpaceX IPO is expected sometime later this year. But XAI is facing regulatory probes in Europe, Asia, and the US after Grok enabled mass creation of deep fake porn, including images of children.
Yeah, the French government invaded. That's not the word, but anyway, they went in and took over the X's offices in Paris. Apparently, as part of a large-scale investigation that has been going on apparently for some time now.
Yeah, it's been kind of a weird deal with that going on. But the thing is, that's one of the challenges with AI is keeping it, I don't know, regulated. A lot of the companies have these safety people that are designed for the AI to make sure that some of that stuff isn't happening. And
right.
That's probably some people that Musk probably needs to hire. I got something new.
He let all the people go from Twitter. Remember?
Right.
Took over Twitter and let all those people that were sort of monitoring content, let them go.
All right, this is something from Ferrari. This is the interior of the Ferrari.
Oh, yeah. I wonder how they say that. Is it Luce or Luce? Or
Luce.
what is it?
Luce. Light. Let's see. Do I have any volume here? I was thinking there was sound to this. Maybe there's not. But this was designed by somebody who designed the iPhone. I like how they have everything in both analog and digital.
Yeah, that's a trend we're starting to see again. Everybody is people are starting to shift back to the analog because it just feels more natural than just having to push buttons and things.
Yeah, it has paddle shifters. I mean, how many gears are you going to have on an electric car?
Well, yeah, here's the thing. They said what they're doing is they are designing their own audio because it's an electric car. It's basically, apart from the whir of the motor, right? That's all you're hearing. There is no exhaust. So what they're talking about doing is designing custom their own engine sound effects. So they're not trying to copy what Dodge did, with putting, the sound of an internal combustion engine, tuned. They're looking to come up with their own. Some of the others, they've sort of played with spaceship kind of, sound like a UFO going over or something. They're supposedly working on coming up with their own signature sound for their car.
It should be like a horse whinny, or neigh.
Yeah, or a clip clop, or
clip clop. Yeah, I can just.
I'm sure they're looking for. Hey, I'm sure they're looking for suggestions, right?
Yeah. You just never know, right? Oh, yeah. Just let's see what we got here. All right. Ferrari says its electric car will be completely different in every possible way. They're making us wait for the first reveal, but they're dripping out details.
Well, that hasn't stopped AI from generating images. I even asked it to generate an image for me that goes along with the posting that we have on the website. So AI can imagine, but we'll have to see what they come up with.
Yeah. Let's see. it's not an electric car, it's an electric Ferrari.
Exactly.
Very
Exactly.
different.
It's an electric Ferrari.
Yeah.
Which, it'd be interesting because they have a certain, ethos that is part of their character, right? The prancing pony, the sound of the engine, the styling, the interior quality. That's an ethos that they want to preserve. And how do you do that going over to something that is a totally different kind of a powertrain? And that I think gives us some really interesting opportunities. It'll be interesting to see what they come up. And hey, by the way, Ferrari, I'd be happy to come over and give you an evaluation from EV World's perspective.
There you go. Let's see. So from sightings, they know it's going to have rear doors, but it won't be labeled an SUV. Now, the V12 powered Puro Sangue, which is kind of an SUV, I mean, it really looks like an SUV to me, isn't called one either. So they're going to use a bespoke electric car platform that should make it significantly more spacious than a similarly sized ICE model, and possibly the most practical Ferrari ever.
I wonder if they call one of the words that I really like is the saloon, right? It's because here in the West, here in the United States, we have when you think of a saloon, you think of a Western, and you think of a bar, and you think of a piano player and gamblers, and ladies of the evening, that kind of thing. That's a saloon, right? But over in Europe, a saloon is a type of vehicle. Then there were saloon carriages, and then that progressed down into saloon cars, which I'm guessing is sort of what this may eventually end up looking like, as what the British would call a saloon.
All right, moving on from Ferrari. Let's see. Nuclear power set a new record in 2025, which is surprising considering how many reactors were dropped. But new projects continued steady growth driven by data center electricity demand. SMRs are gaining more traction. Multiple SMR deals have been signed across the Czech Republic, South Korea, and Poland. Yeah, I've had people in the Czech Republic actually reach out to me about SMR tech. Let's see. Fusion commercialization accelerates. Tokyo's Helical Fusion signed its first power purchase agreement with a supermarket chain called Aoki Super for heating, cooling, and refrigeration using Stellarator-based fusion technology.
Yeah, what is that?
Well, that's the name of they're calling their fusion is Stellarator-based fusion technology.
Oh, stellar as in star. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Don't know how far along this company is in their fusion product, but like I've talked about before, there's a bunch of companies now that have done successful fusion reactions. The trick is making them occur 10 times you have to do it at 10 hertz to make it commercially viable.
Right.
I mean, you have to do it 10 times a second, and that's the challenge.
Wasn't there a story of some teenager? I saw something I didn't follow up on, but I saw a headline about that. Some teenager successfully created fusion. I guess his bedroom lab or whatever, dad's garage.
So when you're trying to combine deuterium and tritium together, you have to focus heat of about 70 million degrees. So that'd be hard to do in your bedroom. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's probably some other workaround.
Unless it's cold fusion, right?
Oh, okay.
So of course that was the thing that was tried back 90s, in the early 1990s, where they took deuterium and I forget what the other thing, but they were able to do what they called the Pons-Fleischmann. I think it was the Pons-Fleischmann experiment in University of Utah, where they supposedly were able to generate byproducts that you would normally see in a fusion process. They were able to do it without having to do all that enormous heat. And of course, that quickly got poo-pooed by science, and people have tried to replicate it ever since the 30 years since then. Apparently not with a lot of luck. But hey, maybe this kid figured it out. Who knows?
Yeah, I haven't heard about that, but you just never know. The U.S. is proposing a 100% Buy America rule for EV chargers. So, in order to get federal funding, the Trump administration has proposed raising domestic content requirement for federally funded EV chargers from 55% to as high as 100%, potentially reshaping the charging infrastructure supply chain. Despite policy uncertainty, public charging infrastructure is still expanding at a healthy pace. Private sector momentum remains strong even as government support becomes more restrictive. And in that space, there's a megawatt scale tech emerging. A company called iCharging launched 1.6 megawatt modular architecture for megawatt scale EV charging this week, targeting commercial fleet applications. Now, I'm going to assume that in a situation like this, to have a 1.6 megawatt charger, they probably have massive battery packs
I would say,
to the location so that you can keep filling those batteries, but have it so you could quickly provide that energy throughput to the trucks.
I got to be doing something like that because it's just going to be so hard to be delivering that much power.
And you have to have battery charging systems on the car, on the truck, to accept that. What's the highest we're seeing right now is 800 volts, something like that.
In the United States,
most cars are in the 200 to 300 volt range.
Right. Yeah. They've already, I know BYD's done some 1.25 megawatt stuff in China as tests.
Yeah, but generally on a consumer level basis, most are 340, somewhere in that area, and you get the rare Porsche that is 800.
All right, here's an EV World article. Portugal hits 80.7% renewable electricity.
How about that?
Yeah,
your robot picked one of our stories.
Yeah, well, it's not it's the second one I think it's had today.
Okay,
good. Hydro and wind dominate. Portugal generated 80% of electricity from renewables in January. Hydro was 36.8%, which we don't have a lot of hydro in the US. Wind 35.2%, and solar was only 4%.
Yeah.
Strong winter rainfall and winds boosted output while sharply reducing fossil fuel use. And that's pretty crazy. 80% is a big number.
80%, that's for a month, not just for a day or a few hours, but for the entire month.
That most EU countries like Portugal have 24/7 access to electricity. Okay. Whereas, a lot of times we look at some of these like African countries where 99% of their electricity comes from hydroelectric, but the people only have access to energy like a couple hours a day.
Yes.
So it's a very different, situation in a country like Portugal. Northern wind and southern solar strategy is working. Geographic positioning allows Portugal to leverage northern hydro and wind resources and southern solar, pushing the country to the top of the EU renewable energy leaderboard. Hydro reservoirs are still the key for balancing. Battery storage played only a minor role in January. Hydro reservoirs provide most grid balancing, highlighting infrastructure needs for full decarbonization. Yeah, it's always impressive when you see the hydro being used as a battery.
Yeah, you're using it as a battery. Just simply take the electricity and pump the water back up to the top of the reservoir. Just beautiful.
All right. Radical wind power innovations target logistics bottlenecks. Heirloom Energy ground track system uses a low oval ground track with small blades for easy transport and installation in places traditional turbines can't reach. Targets wind's biggest barrier, logistics and transportation of massive components. It's always pretty crazy when you see one of those wind turbine blades going down the road because you have
down the interstate,
trailer on one end of it and then half of a trailer under the other end of it.
The other end of it. Yeah, exactly. We have those coming through here all the time.
Yeah, they're always going up and down I-80. Yeah.
What's really interesting though is that airplane.
Oh, the Radia. Well, we covered that once, but now it's actually going.
12 times the volume of a 747. It makes a 747 look like a toy compared to a
Is this
particularly.
bigger than the Is this bigger than the Antonov AN-225?
Oh, way bigger. Dwarfs the Antonov. Yes.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
You think of putting a 100-meter wind turbine blade in that thing, and
Oh, yeah.
several of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's being. Now, the thing I can't figure out, and I haven't looked into it enough, is that they say this will make the bottleneck. So what you have to do is you have to have a runway somewhere within within a reasonable transportation distance of where the blades are made. Then you have to have a runway within a reasonable distance between where you're going to deploy the wind turbine and use those blades. And I don't know how much runway this little this little thing will take to get off the ground, but it's got to be several miles at least of runway to get airborne and to land.
Yeah, well, they want to put it in places where you can't reach with traditional transport, but still, you got to build a runway that this thing can land on.
Exactly. So, or what they're doing is you have it close enough to a seaport to where you can then take it and load it on a ship and then move it out to, because apparently the biggest ones are actually being built offshore, because you have a more constant, steady wind that'll justify the economics of putting something up that big.
Yeah. Yeah, they're expecting to have the first flight of the Radia in 2030.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
That'll be
way
interesting.
down the road. But investors have already valued the company at $1 billion. If it works, it can unlock a new generation of ultra-large turbines capable of producing far more power per unit. That's pretty amazing. That's not like I said, we covered the Radia once before, but everybody wants to see pictures of the Radia, and it doesn't exist yet.
No,
So
there's concept illustrations of what it looks like a long sausage with stubby wings off the middle of it and a big sort of B-24 like tail at the back. So we'll see if and when the thing gets to the point where they can start revealing more of what the prototype looks like or whatever.
All right. Well, let's talk about what's going on at the EPA this week.
Oh God. Yes.
Yeah. So
disaster. That's what's going
the
on.
CO2 endangerment finding. You want to go ahead and talk about this, Bill?
Yeah. So what's happened here is that since 2009, which was under the Obama administration, one of the very first pieces of legislation they passed was a ruling that said greenhouse gases, CO2, methane, so on, are dangerous to human health. And because they're dangerous to human health, they need to be regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency. And so all kinds of processes, from manufacturing to vehicle assembly to mileage rules and that type of thing, all fell under this endangerment ruling. You wanted to control the amount of CO2 coming out of a tailpipe of a car because that CO2 would endanger human health, or methane or whatever. What conservatives have long argued, led by guys like Lee Zeldin, the current head of the EPA, was that CO2 is not that bad. The plants depend on it. If you get more CO2, plants grow better. CO2 is good for us. As a matter of fact, you see behind me there my little mead facility. Those yeast are pumping out CO2 right now as I speak. So it can't be that bad for you, can it? Actually, yes, it can. And the science for decades has demonstrated that yes, it can and is bad for human health. A volcano erupted in Africa here 30, 40 years ago. And there was a lake, typical, like Crater Lake here in the United States. It was a lake, and the CO2 expelled out of, when that volcano erupted, all that CO2 blew out of that lake. And because CO2 is heavier than oxygen, it cascaded down the slope of the volcano, and it wasn't a chiroplastic flow that killed, I forget the number, but it was a large number. Yeah, a large number of people were killed by the CO2. So in quantity, yes, it can hurt you, but it's not that. Plants only have a tolerance for so much CO2.
So I work out when I go to the gym to work out in the morning. I work out with a gentleman who's from that village.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, he had a whole lot of family members die from that event.
Wow. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. That's
all the animals died, the people died.
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody died, but it killed thousands.
Right. So anyway, yes, CO2 can be bad, and also happens to be a gas that enhances climate change and warming because it traps the heat within the troposphere of the planet, and it traps that in and allows the planet to get warmer. So all of these things that we've been talking about for a century, because this is not a new phenomenon. This didn't come around because of Obama. We've been talking about this since the days of Edison. And before Edison, there were research being done on the effects and what would happen if we relied too much on fossil fuels. So then you got guys come along who've been bought and sold their souls to the fossil fuel industry, like Lee Zeldin, and I'm not going to be apologizing for it. He's been lobbying in Congress for them for a long, long time. So naturally, he gets picked to head the EPA. What's the highest thing on his agenda? Get rid of the endangerment ruling. And once you get rid of that, you pull the underpinnings of much of American environmental law. So they succeeded doing that this week. The interesting thing is that the only person that you can point the finger at, because I asked, Zeldin can't do this by himself. How did this come about? So what happens is Zeldin comes in. He brings along with him appointees who we don't know and are not required because they're assistants or temporary whatever. They're not required to know their names of who these people are that were appointed to become his advisors. And of course, they came in and said, we're getting rid of the endangerment and we don't care what science says. We're going to do it because we have to make our supporters, our patrons happy and get rid of this thing. And it'll improve American productivity and competitive and will bring down prices, all of which is, pardon my French, I can say this because we're not FAC, whatever it is, we're not controlled at this point by the government, which is bullshit. Yeah. All of the science for decades has pointed to the fact that we need this. It's serious. And of course, what do we have? We have the United States falling further and further behind in global competitiveness. We just talked about earlier about where China has the lead in these technologies. So what's happened is that now we're going to see none of the industry has to abide by it anymore. They can pollute as much as they want. There's no oversight over them. But this was done in two ways. One was a consensus, supposedly, at the EPA to nullify the original 2009 ruling, and by presidential executive order. All it takes is to get a new administration in office that will revoke the presidential order. And then you just simply have a new EPA chief come in and bring in more scientifically minded people to to reevaluate the ruling and reinstall the ruling, but that's going to take us probably until 2029 or so. So in the meantime, there's this window where people can just do all the pollution, the industry can do all the polluting they want. The good thing is that not everybody buys that. And there are states and organizations, nonprofits and things, environmental groups that are going to fight this thing tooth and nail. So I don't expect really to gain much traction. Industry, and you're sitting in Detroit. You're a part of General Motors. You're a part of Ford. You're a part of Stellantis, Chrysler, whatever. And you see that your lunch is being eaten by Chinese. And what are the Chinese people buying? At least until last month. What are they buying? They're buying EV. What do we have? Somebody just commented earlier they saw a BYD pickup truck in his town in the U.S. Somebody lives on the border, somebody in Mexico, bought a BYD pickup truck and drove it into the United States. Canada has now said there's no more tariffs on the Chinese vehicles. So we're going to open up. Now they've got if you buy a Canadian-made EV, then you're going to get a $5,000 tax credit. But they're not going to apply that same tax credit, but they're not going to have the same level of import duties on any Chinese, the Neos and the BYDs and the Geelys and things like that. What people don't realize is we actually already have Chinese vehicles coming into this country. Polestar is a Chinese company under Swedish management, but the cars are made in China, and they're good cars, So that's all going to be eaten away. You think the guys at General Motors in their boardroom are going to say, "Oh, we're just going to go back to making, for the next 3 years, we're going to start making gas guzzlers"? No, they're not going to do that. They think a lot further ahead than that. So I don't see this thing going really anywhere, and I see it getting facing a lot of headwind legally. Of course, it all depends. It'll end up at the Supreme Court. And where does the Supreme Court, where will they fall on this? I don't know. They're continually sending mixed signals. I think they lean one direction, then they come up with a decision that goes completely opposite of that. So who knows where that'll end up. But anyway, that's the EP endangerment thing.
Well, all right. Well, we're going to wrap up today. Everyone, want to appreciate the comments, and for folks watching and tuning in today, Bill and I will be back on Tuesday.
All right.
Let's